Hello, Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous here. Hope you're doing well in all this time of quarantine. I wanted to bring you some helpful tools and tips to survive through this interesting time. So I reached out to one of the local attorneys that I have worked with in the past and enjoy his expertise, and wanted to interview him to bring you information that's going to be of help to you. So before we jump into that interview that I'm very excited about, just a couple of announcements. There are two virtual groups beginning May 4th and May 5th. So connect with me and get that information. Also, April 29th, I will be again doing a workshop preparing for mediation, and that's going to give you the tools that you need to have before you see your attorney for the first time or going into mediation for the first time. So connect with me on those fronts. So now let's get into our great information today and the interview with Mike Toburen. Mike is a family law attorney in downtown Grand Rapids, works with clients throughout West Michigan. He specializes in two practice areas, family law and estate planning. He handles all types of family law cases, divorce, custody, and parenting time issues. He has a number of high conflict cases, and he is also certified and committed to collaborative divorce, which is a low conflict divorce process where the parties agree to resolve the divorce without litigating in court, which is always a good idea. He is married with two young children. He's a long distance runner and spends much of his time as possible in the summer in the water. So welcome, Mike Toburen.
Well, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
You bet. And you had mentioned in the interview there, or the introduction, that you were involved in collaborative divorce. I know many people are not familiar with that practice, and that is one choice of going through the process of divorce, mediation, collaborative divorce, going through trial. So would you explain for us a little bit of what collaborative divorce is?
For sure. And collaborative divorce is not necessarily new, but it is becoming more and more popular. And we find that a lot of people don't know about it until we talk to them about it. But at a very basic level, collaborative divorce is an attempt to keep people out of the court. So instead of going through a traditional divorce where there may be some litigation which leads to conflict and can increase the overall cost of a divorce. In the collaborative process, people agree up front that they will not use the court system to resolve their divorce. So both parties sign an agreement, both parties hire an attorney, and then there's also what we call a divorce coach involved, which is someone that has experience and training in family counseling. But the idea is that from the beginning, both parties commit to resolving the divorce outside the courtroom. And if that agreement ultimately falls apart and one or both parties decide that they need to litigate the divorce, the agreement is that both parties then have to find brand new attorneys. So by making that commitment, they really commit themselves, hopefully, to sticking with the collaborative process and, again, avoiding some of the stress and certainly the cost of litigating their divorce.
Super, thank you. Thank you for that. And I will, at the bottom of this interview recording, I will post information about Mike and his law practice, and you'll be able to contact him if you'd like to. So the topic that we really wanted to talk about right now is parenting time during this pandemic. So we're going through a divorce during this pandemic, and it is so difficult. So what can we be doing to work on our divorce right now to keep things moving forward?
Well, Kathy, number one, the executive order that Governor Whitmer issued, the stay in place or shelter in place order, very clearly says that parenting time should continue. So one of the exceptions to the stay home order is that people are allowed to drive for the purpose of transporting children for parenting time. So number one is that people or parents should have their parenting time. Beyond that, there are a number of legitimate issues and concerns that people have called with. What if I worry that the children will be exposed at the other house? Maybe my ex works in the healthcare field or works in an essential industry. I'm worried that my child will go there and have a higher risk. The important thing to remember right now is that communication is key. And obviously in a high conflict case, that can be extremely difficult. What I have told my clients is that use this maybe as an opportunity to reestablish some communication with the other parent. Number two, I think, is to remember that this really is about the children. Children, although they may not talk about it directly, have really been impacted by this whole crisis. They're not in school. They, number one, that their routines have been upset. They probably miss their classmates and friends. They probably miss their teachers. So it's important to remember that children are struggling with this as well. And one of the ways to, I think, limit that stress is to make sure the children see both of their parents. They may be worried about the other parent that they aren't seeing every single day. So that's number one. I think number two is if there are legitimate reasons why a child should not go visit the other parent. Maybe the other parent has been exposed to it or is working in a field where there is higher risk. Communicating and talking about alternative forms of parenting time, I think is key, whether it's Zoom, which we're using today, or FaceTime, or if that's not available, even daily phone calls with the other parent. And I think the second part of that is talking about what would some makeup parenting time be down the road. So if the other parent gives up some parenting time now because they are at risk, summer is coming up soon. Hopefully the stay home order will be lifted by then. The kids won't be in school. It would be a great time for the parent who is losing parenting time now to maybe get some additional parenting time to make up for what they're losing. But I really think communication is key, and remembering that in any parenting time dispute, but especially right now, the children should be the focus. And again, for high conflict cases, maybe it's an opportunity to reestablish some constructive communication.
I love your emphasis on the children. And one of the reasons why people need that support group is because they need a place, the parents, the adults need a place where they can process through the trauma that they are going through. So it makes them stronger to be able to be the good parents. So I appreciate that, and I see that in every mediation when there are young children involved, that we focus on what's best for them, but don't neglect that you need that support and you need someone who is going to be walking you through the trauma that you are talking about. You talked about communication between parents, and that's so critically important. I always say just deal in the facts. Don't get into emotional conversation with your former spouse. And you see that, I'm sure, a lot, Mike, and yet it doesn't help anything. As people engage with their soon-to-be former spouse, wanting some kind of validation or to lash out, it doesn't help them. So give us more tips, Mike, Attorney Toburen, on how you can communicate with your spouse right now.
For sure. In family law, we deal on a daily basis with issues that people are having with a spouse or a former spouse, sometimes that have been issues for a number of years, and those really can be hard for people to let go. In terms of communication, what I'm telling clients when they call is, if you just absolutely cannot talk on the phone with the other parent, find an alternative form of communication. That may be texting, that may be email. And I think your point is a good one, that I have been advising clients, as difficult as it may be, try to right now just focus on the situation we're in and the needs that your children have right now, and try not to use this as an opportunity to rehash or bring up issues from the past. There may be a very good reason that a parent should voluntarily give up his or her parenting time, or there may even be a case where, and there have been cases where, the custodial parent is the one at risk, and that parent should do the right thing and have the children go live, at least short term, with the other parent. And when there have been issues in the past that have caused hurt or stress, that can be very, very difficult. But again, I've been trying to encourage people to just look at today and the next couple weeks. Pick a form of communication that is less stressful. And that can be the phone. Some people, text messages or emails can be misinterpreted, the meaning or the tenor. So for some parents who typically communicate in that way, it can be better just to pick up the phone and say, we have a situation here, let's talk about it, and let's try to just focus on today, and we'll get, down the road, hopefully we'll get back to normal and we can worry about some of the other issues at that time. And I'd also say although the courts are not open and a lot of attorneys, myself included, are working at home, that communication oftentimes and sometimes should happen through the attorney. If if a parent knows that no form of communication will work and whatever they say will be taken the wrong way, call your attorney, have them call the other party's attorney, and see if some type of compromise can be worked out that way.
Now, this is a time to be as cooperative as possible. There's also some applications such as My Family Wizard, where you can be communicating that way and have that all logged, right? That's going to help you. And it also has a little meter on it for when your tone gets too hostile, to kind of help you in that communication process. It's very important that you are communicating effectively and well right now. So you are working from home, as a lot of attorneys are, and all of us are for that matter. So how can we help the divorce process right now so that we are doing all that we can do to get through this? And we can't control what the courts are going to do, what their timing is going to be, but we can process through this. I know I'm doing mediations by using Zoom. I'm assuming perhaps in collaborative divorce and with your clients, you're using Zoom or something similar as well.
Without a doubt, Zoom has been a great tool. FaceTime has been useful or productive at times as well. Even in a traditional divorce where there are, a couple hearings or 2-3 hearings, a lot of the work gets done outside the courtroom anyways. So it is possible right now to keep the divorce moving forward. Mediation can still happen, as you mentioned. Since the courts are not open right now, for cases where there is a little bit more conflict, it may be a good time to give mediation and a try or even a second attempt to see if some of those issues can be resolved. I think everyone will understand when the courts do reopen, they're going to be extremely busy, and it may be difficult to get quickly on the court docket when we do open back up. Mediation, even informal negotiations between the two attorneys or between the parties, can be extremely helpful. And if parents are willing to really focus on the children right now, maybe that can be at least an attempt to move the process forward and maybe remove some of the stress or conflict from the divorce.
And so really with collaborative divorce or with mediation, you could have all of the details worked out and then simply be waiting for the courts to open to get it filed, correct?
Correct. And really outside of hearings, the courts are open right now. So a new divorce can be filed. If there is an agreement put in place for a divorce that is in process, that can be filed with the court. In limited circumstances, there can be a hearing by phone or video right now. So we can't get into court for a hearing, a traditional or hearing, but short of that, almost everything else that needs to happen in a divorce can happen right now, even during the shutdown.
And that's good to know because this is stressful and I know you all want this over with. So really the only thing that's going to stop you in this process is someone not cooperating. So I would encourage you to be cooperating as best you can and not thinking that it's going to be perfectly even. We need to look at it as to what can I move forward with? And you do your best, I know, to get that as fair as possible, but sometimes it's simply not. And so if we want to move forward and get this behind us, we do have to cooperate. So great information. Could you give us just any other general principles that would help us as we go through this difficult process from an attorney's perspective?
For sure. Number one, I think, is to stay in touch with your attorney. There is a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of questions about, especially in regards to parenting time, what should or should not happen. So I think that is key, is stay in touch with your attorney. Again, I think you raised a good point that we can keep moving the process forward outside the courtroom. Really every court now is starting to push people into mediation before they go to trial. Even in a high conflict case, mediation may not resolve every issue, but it may resolve some of the issues. And as we talked about, that can be done right now. But again, I go back to communication is key, which can obviously be difficult in a high conflict case. But even more importantly is to remember that this all is supposed to focus on the children and what is best for them. And to remember that children may not talk about being stressed, but more than likely they are. They need to talk to both parents. They need to have time, if possible, with both parents. And if actual parenting time, maybe for an out-of-state parent, or again, a parent who is at risk right now, isn't possible. There are a lot of alternatives available, again, through FaceTime or Zoom. And I think right now I've been telling clients, if you're the custodial parent and your child wants to call the other parent every single day, my advice would be to let them do so. They may need to hear that parent's voice just to know the parent is okay. So I think we really need to focus on the children. And I think also it's important to remember that at some point the courts are going to open back up. And if children have been withheld um, from the other parent unjustly, there will be some ramifications for that. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but in a high conflict case, I would advise people to just remember the court is going to expect that you're acting in good faith. If you decide your child is not safe with the other parent, the court will look at whether you had a good faith reason to feel that way or to withhold your child. So be careful. Talk to your attorney before you make those decisions. And again, try to do what is best for the child.
And you mentioned that in an article that is on your website about how the court will not look favorably on this, and the ramifications could be pretty extreme. So we do want to be careful in speaking with our attorney and saying, this is what I'm doing. Is this going to hurt me legally in the future? Because it very well may.
Without a doubt, in a normal situation, if children are withheld from the other parent, there are a number of remedies the court can use, make up parenting time. In severe cases, they can issue financial sanctions. They can use contempt of court. In real extreme cases, they can actually permanently change parenting time or custody. So again, I would advise people act in good faith. Remember that the decisions you make now could be brought to light in court later on down the road. So this is not a free pass to stick it to the other parent. And again, the court is going to look at what was the impact on the children, and were they able to maintain a relationship with the other parent.
That is wonderful information. Mike Toburen, thank you for your time, your expertise, your contribution into the lives of many people going through this trauma of divorce, where we need all the tools that we can get. And so you have provided some really good information. So I just hope and pray that you all are listening to this information. If you have any questions, certainly I'm here. I will put the information to reach out to Attorney Toburen, so you have that information as well. So thank you for being here and sharing your expertise with us.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it.